Nicholas Haines talks about how when we construct conscious questions, the unconscious mind will answer. We're basically using the technology for our own self. So, for example, instead of asking ourselves, things like, why are you so annoying? Or can't you do anything right? Or what's wrong with you? We start to ask, why can I cope with this? Or who made you so special? Where did you get so brilliant? Instead of why you're always complaining and why you're always ruining it for everyone, we would ask, why has my past equipped me for this moment? Why is it okay to not know everything at this stage? Why am I quite comfortable of getting through this? Or why can I handle this? So answers in phrases, words, feelings, because the unconscious mind answers questions. And, we might ask ourselves, do you know how much joy you bring me? Or do you know I'm always going to love you? I want to share also, I joined Kevin Sachs. He has this shadow workshop, and he calls it House of the Gathering. And so basically, these are teachings from Carl Jung on projection. And he read some things, and I took some notes. Projection is an unconscious process where unknown parts of the self is seen in others outside the self. And we find in the darkness of the other, the interior, unknown self. All human relationships swarm with projection. It is natural and regular. Our perceptions are permeated with projections. In the projected other, we find our intrapsychic conflicts, evils, and enemies, as well as our dearness and preciousness. For projections to be dissolved, it requires an integrated awareness that one is and was being addressed by a power beyond what the ego can manage and control. The higher, the greater, the bigger self. I also want to share from Paula Tursi. She talks about self-sabotage as a nervous system projection. And this is the idea that if success meant criticism, or visibility meant judged, or intimacy meant being hurt, the body may associate expansion with danger. And when the system detects a threat, whether it's real or remembered, it shifts into the sympathetic activation. And this could seem like anxiety, urgency, overworking, or dorsal shutdown, which is numbness, procrastination, collapse. Within milliseconds before the conscious mind can intervene, responding to encoded memory, not out of alignment. In other words, the memories that were encoded are responsible why someone might be shutting down or overly activated. It's not that we're out of alignment. We're responding to things that may not be real. So I went to a 12-step meeting on this, thing about intimacy as exposure threats. And just like how I had been in no contact with somebody who I'm back in no contact with again, because intimacy felt scary when it wasn't completely on my terms. I felt like the control and dependence had become habits. And like, if I would heal from the wound, like, who would I be? And I felt like this person who I'm in no contact, never blocked me, never criticized me. He just went into shutdown. And I would be pushy or maybe activated. Like, I didn't know which narratives were accurate and punitive, But really what I wanted was unconditional love, not good, not like bad, just love. And I started seeing, like, in some of my projections, this idea that women are supposed to be the moon and the man is supposed to be the sun. Or maybe like in the upbringing, like, is this unreasonable expectations of a man to always be shining, to not have his own inner moon or my inner sun? And also this idea, like, maybe from not enough from my father, or from woman to woman, like a hug. Like, so sometimes, like, this urgency of a need is from a memory where I wasn't, like, held even. So this idea that also wanting someone to bridge the gap, like, I wanted this man to pursue me while I could be distant. I wanted to, like, be comfortable and have him come bridge the gap. But meanwhile, he didn't always feel comfortable to do that. He wanted me to, like, bridge the gap. So I feel like I was upset with him because I wanted to be close to him because I needed a hug. and it felt like a hug talking to him instead of going to my class, my embodiment workshop. And after talking to him, after being in no contact for a while and then talking to him, it felt like an emotional hangover. I was numb. And I sort of like wanted to end it again. And now I'm back into not being in contact with him. I wanted to share from Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky. She says, Shabbos reflects the future reality. Its characteristic is one of delight. So the world to come is described as a realm of deep and lasting joy. And Shabbos allows us to touch something of that experience even when we're in this world. And in Shabbat 118a, which is from the Talmud, it says that Shabbos is someone who delights in Shabbos receives an inheritance without boundaries, and the holiness rises above the physical world's Shabbos, the boundaries and the limits. And so through through Shabbos, a person could step beyond the material world, the narrow boundaries of it, and experience something of the greater expansiveness. And I'm going to share from a book called The State of Grace. And from a 12-step meeting, there's a piece from the text of the 12-step literature which said we had to conclude it was silly and futile to let ourselves be upset at what we saw as diseased actions by others. And especially if we'd hoped that others would continue to be tolerant of our own frequent lapses into dishonesty or manipulative behavior. So this is what the text said, the state of grace, which is on the text. It says, "Do unto others as you would have done to you," was what the idea that a lot of people say this is a great way to live, but what this writer says is that reciprocity was very important to me. If I did anything for anyone, I expected something in return. If they did not respond in kind, that meant that they did not love me. If it was a stranger, that meant there was no justice in the world or that God didn't love me, if God even existed. I wasted so much energy trying to manipulate and control others into doing things my way. I felt entitled, judgmental. If everyone would just follow the golden rule, the world would be a beautiful place, but not everyone's capable of that. People are not objects that can move around on a chessboard, and maybe my idea of reciprocity does not work for them. If I sit around getting resentful about lack of participation in my blueprint for life, I'm only hurting myself. SLA's Steps and Traditions, doesn't matter which program. Even though this program was for love, avoidance, and acting out even sexually, and attachment in addictive ways. So the steps and traditions of the program taught me to be of service without expecting anything in return. This is from when I'm reading from this author. Through the process, I've seen that I will never get what I really need from human beings. I need a spiritual solution. The serenity that the program has given me is better than any token I can receive from the physical world. Today, I am of service to others and let go of expectations. And now I want to share something that's kind of like an add-on, like an extra. Kale Blossom says that our organs or body parts are connected to emotions. And this is like not exactly science, but it's not exactly pseudoscience. It's just like an invitation. So we learned before that like when we're triggered or we have projections or the sympathetic nervous system gets activated. I like the idea, and when we're asking our unconscious mind questions, so we could start to heal. So basically there's this idea that certain feelings, whether they're quote unquote good or bad, could be connecting to certain parts. Now these feelings we're going to talk about here are going to be ones that are being stored because it's like hard to process. We might be avoiding it. And sometimes there's good feelings we're avoiding, but that I don't think Kale Blossom focuses on this. And it could be that all of these emotions are actually could go good or bad. My opinion is that all the emotions can go either direction, good or bad, and then they can go downward spiral or upward spiral. They're just energy. And that's why movement, singing, dancing, laughing, and connection, making choices, these are all things that could convert the energy, and they could become different expressions or permutations of energy itself. So the liver could be storing anger, depression, resentment, irritability. And remember what I said is that all these emotions could be transformed into other types of energy. We learned in physics a fundamental law is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. and that means that it can be converted, transformed. The gallbladder, resentment, frustration, and irritability. Ovaries, blocked creativity, inner conflict, loss, and bitterness. By the way, this is when you have pain, maybe, God forbid, or something that's bothering you. Pancreas, low self-esteem, lack of self-control, poor boundaries. The heart, lack of love, joy, or happiness in life. The teeth, lack of power, feeling inferior, something in life needs changing. Kidneys, fear, bashful, weak, willpower, and hard to say no, insecurities. Spleen, worry, tendency to overthink, and rumination. Lower back, unexpressed anger, fear, avoidance, catastrophizing. Shoulders, stressed over responsibilities, carrying the weight of the world, caretaker burnout, difficulty asking for help. Eyes, avoidance, I don't want to see this, hypervigilance, difficulty focusing on the present. The uterus, trauma in utero, personal struggles, relationship problems, and anger at the self. The bladder, separation anxiety, fear, shyness, embarrassment. Stomach, sadness, shame, life situation that's hard to stomach. The ankle, the foot, feeling unsafe, ungrounded, fear of the future, uncertainty about next steps. Lungs, grief, sadness, loss, longing. Hands, wrists, difficulty receiving help, feeling unappreciated, burnout from constant doing. Thyroid, not feeling you have a voice or that your voice is heard, respected, and supported. Stress, that's hard to swallow. And finally, knees, which is resistance to change, stubbornness or rigidity, fear of moving forward, and feeling unsupported. I wish everybody to be healthy, to be able to convert all the energy, to expand beyond any threatening exposures or projections, and to really have that grace and to be of service.